Coach David Goldshore, how are you?
Stevie, what's up?
How have the last 72 hours been for you?
Um, yeah, it's kind of been a whirlwind of emotions for sure. Um, it's bittersweet for a lot of reasons, but not easy. Not easy. What this program has meant to me, what it will continue to mean, what it will continue to mean for me, is, I was talking to somebody. It's been the best 9 years of my life, and so it's been an emotional last 72 hours for sure.
I'll bet. You have the highest winning percentage of any coach in Staples history. So why does this feel like the right moment to walk away?
It was a tough decision. I'm not sure there's ever a right moment to walk away. My late father said to me, sometimes you have to do what the situation demands, not what the ego wants. And I kind of, took that with me. I gave it a lot of thought. I wanted to, I felt a responsibility to kind of make sure that I went. I gave this group of seniors the 4 years I came in with them. But there's a lot going on in my life right now. I have 3 kids and a business and a family, and a lot of other things that are important to me. And I just didn't feel confident that I was going to be able to give to the program what I've given to in the past. And those who know me, I think can understand that I go at things at a 110% level. I try to. I pride myself on that. And kind of just made sense at the time.
Was there a specific moment this season that you knew that, that you made a decision, you knew this was it?
I've been kind of thinking about it, right? The season was an awesome year, Steve. It was, going 26-1 and going through that process was tremendous, but it was grueling. The expectations were high. For me, I felt a lot of pressure. And while the winning and the team was great, it was a challenge. And so I think I was going back and forth, but when we beat Notre Dame Prep in the semifinal game and we were going to Mohegan Sun, and I started with this group going to Mohegan Sun and ending with this group going to Mohegan Sun, I felt like it was the right time.
Came full circle.
Yeah.
How much of the decision was about basketball, and how much was this about lifetime outside the gym?
I think it was probably a combination of both. In regards to, the personal needs that I have right now, to be the greatest father I can possibly be, to be the greatest husband I can be, to be the greatest business partner I can be. It was just the right time for it, and I just felt through thick and thin, I could walk away, feeling proud about what we've done, proud of what we accomplished, and confident that the program will be in awesome hands moving forward, and that hopefully the legacy of what we've done will continue for as long as possible.
What are people going to misunderstand about why you're leaving?
Like the one thing that I'll say, like I talked about toughness a lot with the kids, being tough. And there's 2 types of like toughness. There's endurance toughness, and then there's decision-making toughness. And, from my perspective, the former is very surface level, right? Going through endurance, going through the struggles of what a new season would be like, going through the difficulties of potentially, understanding that you're losing a lot. And then there's like decision-making toughness, which is about doing what is best for you and me. Again, doesn't satisfy your ego, because I loved the job. I loved the job. I loved having the ability to have, my ego loved having the ability to have impact. My ego loved our interviews at the end of the game. My ego loved the accolades that I've received my ego loved the championships we've won, right? That is, but decision making and what this what the situation demands is something completely different.
If you stayed one more year, what is the biggest thing you think you'd be sacrificing?
I don't think there'd be anything I'd be sacrificing. I think the biggest thing that I would not be true to myself in being able to deliver what I felt like I would have delivered to the other group. It would have been exciting to come back from my perspective. And again, I've thought about it, not even before the decision, but after the decision. The idea of the expectations around losing 2 All-State players is something that would have been an enormous challenge. It would have been a fun challenge. The pressures of winning every single game, I think, probably wouldn't have been there. So there would have been great benefits. But improving what David Goldshore needs as a human being is what I'd be sacrificing by coming back, and that to me is really the most important thing.
Right. So when players come back 10 years from now, what do you hope they remember most about playing for you?
I hope that they remember that I first loved them, right? And that hopefully I've stayed in touch with them throughout the 10 years, so the relationship isn't new to them. That I pushed them, that they pushed me, that they remember and know that I learned as much from them as hopefully they learned from me. And that they understood and had a second family for 3.5 months during the year.
What do you think this program needed most when you arrived as a head coach 4 years ago? And what do you think it'll need going forward?
The first thing it probably needed was Chris Zajac, Adam Udell, Sam Klacko, and Mason Tobias, and other guys. So
that's a great answer.
That's what the program needed. So and it got it. I think it just probably needed a little bit of TLC. It needed some core values, which we instilled with Stance, and hopefully will continue to live on. It needed just continued support from the school, the community, the parents, the administration, and guys like you, Steve, that gave the experience, elevated the experience not only for me but for the children.
Appreciate that. Now, it's a good question. Who challenged you the most during your time here? Be it a player, a coach, or even a parent, but who challenged you the most during your coaching, your last years with the program?
Besides my wife?
Besides your wife. We'll get to the family a little bit later, but there are a lot of people that did. I think the person that probably, if I have to think back, the person that probably challenged me the most is Chris Bickens. Chris is such an awesome, not only basketball coach, but human, and who had a lot more coaching experience or basketball experience than I did, and living up to the expectations that I need to live up to have a guy like that work for me, however you want to define that, challenged me to be the best version of myself. What did this job take from you that people never see?
What did the job take from me? I'm not really sure it took anything besides, took some time away from my family. My son Jake, was a freshman playing baseball at Trinity. Stuff like not being able to see him get his first hit in Florida took away. My daughter Jordan, who is, abroad right now, studying abroad, and it's junior Colorado, maybe giving her the ability to go see her and visit her and spend time with her when she's going through a life adventure. Justin, who is, a freshman who has interests and aspires to be a college golfer, being able to maybe take him away during the winter and go to a tournament with him or spend time with him, or and then just being as present as I possibly could with my wife. Those are things that a job like this takes away. It gave me a ton too, Steve.
Yeah, and that was like my follow-up question was, I think you almost answered it, was because who paid the biggest sacrifice for those 4 years? Because for me, like being at the games, everything, and you see, it's just not about that, whatever, that hour and a half. It's just so much. So my question would be, who paid the biggest price? I think you just answered, was your family.
Yeah, I don't
know, and price not the right question, but you know what I mean? Like,
I think that your family always, if you talk to any coach, I think that, the interesting and unique thing about coaching is that your office is put on display twice a week in front of, the junkyard had at times 750 people in it, right? And your product and what you represent and what you are is represented on that floor and in front of people. So it requires a lot of work. I had a lot of pride in what that office looked like on Tuesday and Friday nights, and it took a lot of work.
Now, I will say this to that point. I would always see your family there. Lauren was always up there. Jordy was there with you guys. I know Jake came back for the games. And the thing was like, I'm going to make a reference to Chipper by the Dozen. When the coach had the family with him, and the minute that the family wasn't good with him, they weren't showing up anymore. So you really can't fake that.
No, they loved it a lot. Justin was on the bench with me for 4 years as a manager. I had such a fun time coaching in the school when Jordan and Jake were in the school in their prime years. Jordan was a senior when I started, and that class was just amazing. I remember them running on the court against Richfield in that first win that we beat them up there, and then just, I think, the relationships that not only did I build with my players, but also with my children's friends as a function of being the coach. There are some. It's been special that way. So no, it wasn't. Yes, there were compromises that they made, and there was Dad being on display and watching me sweat and all the yelling and screaming and all. I'm sure that the hiding and putting their hands and their faces in their hands that they did during that time was tough. But I think if you ask each one of them, I'm pretty confident that they will think that the net of all of it would be positive.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's even like, mentioned the same thing with PrepZone. I have a relationship with friends of my son that it's so hard to explain, but it's so great.
Yeah.
Okay, now, what was the most ridiculous thing you've said in a timeout that somehow worked?
This year I don't know if I've said some ridiculous things. Actually, I shouldn't say it. I think one of the more lighthearted moments was after regulation in Mohegan Sun this year, where and I mentioned this before, but I kind of came into the huddle and they're all smiling. Mason, Maddie, Dylan, Austin, and Sam are smiling, and I am not smiling. Right, my heart rate is up, and I turned to them and I was just like, you guys are having fun, and they're like, this is the best ever. So that moment was incredibly lighthearted. I remember there have been plenty of huddles where I would not speak to my players, but I'd speak to the bench, just about what we needed at this point, because I really felt that everyone was valued equally, that I needed them to hear my message, and maybe the players would hear it as through them. Yeah. We had some great moments in that. There have been times where I've tried to draw plays, and for whatever reason, my mind goes blank and I'm drawing up and I'm just pick JB, just go ahead and do it. Like there are plenty of times that that's happened.
That's great. Okay, so who was the most you've got to be kidding me player that you ever coached, and why?
That's a really good question. You got to be kidding me. I think I've had like you got to be kidding me. Those kids throughout the whole year. Caleb Smith was you got to be kidding me. Aaron Shore was you got to be kidding me. Yeah, those are two that kind of come to mind for me.
And why is that the kind of, because I'm thinking it's a positive, but what is the gotta be kidding me?
I think it was, Aaron is such a great kid. And, he's, I just never was sure what was going to come out of his mouth. But just an awesome kid, and he's going to, have a great senior year for the program. I think Caleb was just this unwavering confidence, He walks off of being, in my opinion, should have been Gatorade Player of the Year as a senior, and he just kind of walks into our gym and we're in overtime of the Trumbull game our second year, and he just knocks down the three. Like, he just had so much confidence. I'm like, you just got to be kidding me. So that's kind of what I remember about those guys. I mean, there was, Jack Jacobs, another one that you got to be kidding me. I never knew what I was going to get from Jack, but Jack and could possibly be the most improved player that I've ever coached. So, awesome. A lot of good stuff there.
Now, if you were mic'd up for an entire game, would your legacy be different, better or worse?
I guess this goes to BJ. I'm not sure that he would have kept me for as long as he did. I think what people would see is who I am. We talked about stance and about the values of stance, and one of the values is the T, which is transparency. And I just kind of felt that being transparent and seeing who I was or who I am, during the good times, during the bad times, made it real for everybody. I would hear a lot of my friends in town come to me and be like, I'd come to the games to watch you kind of do your thing, right?
Lose your mind.
Lose your mind. Lose your mind. And that's like the unique thing about being a basketball coach is your emotions are on display that you can't hide. There's no, you're not in the dugout. You're not, maybe far away from the fans on a football field. Like, you're right front and center. So everyone saw what they saw.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, and what is your go-to line when you don't agree with a call?
You're going to watch that on film and be embarrassed for yourself. Something like that. I remember saying that.
When you watch that back, you can
I remember saying that to one of the refs at the end of the state championship. I go, and you kind of have a jab back and forth with them. But I remember saying, you're going to see that in film, you're going to be embarrassed for yourself. Something like that. The emotion, the coach-referee relationship is an interesting one, right?
Because I love watching it. I think it's the most entertaining thing going on. Because you know them, you know names, you know who they are.
You do, but most of the time, and I've apologized to referees and still owe people apologies. A lot of the times you take your frustrations out on your players and yourself on the referees. Mm-hmm. So what happens is that you'll see somebody do something, and one of your players will be upset that they didn't get a foul called, or they're upset that they got called for something, and they get you see their frustration. And then what happens is that as the coach, you immediately go into like protective mode. And then who can you lash out on? You lash out on the person that made the person feel angry or uncomfortable. It's just like you're a parent, you know?
Yeah,
so I there's a lot of irrational moments that I've had in the 4 years. I never got teed up though, Steve.
I know.
Not one time. I got a bench warning, but I never got teed up in 4 years, which I'm proud of because, first of all, it could have had a negative impact on the game. And second, like, my job is to role model for the kids. I guess at times that worked and at times.
But that's not even an offensive line. You're going to watch that back. It's just like, you're just pointing a fact.
Yeah, I mean, it is, but I've had officials come over to me and sit there and say, when you watch it on film tomorrow, you're going to know you were wrong. So there's a jab.
I love it. Listen, I was a soccer referee, and I used to love. And like, my officer, why do I say? Because I love arguing with coaches. It's great.
Yeah.
It goes both ways. I think
it's part of it. But those, those guys are awesome, and they have a really difficult job, and it's easy for us to look at a call. There are a couple of block charge calls in that championship game where, after looking at it from every
So you've
single
seen it now. You've watched the game.
I have.
Because last time we talked, you hadn't watched it.
I hadn't watched it. I did watch it. Like there are a couple times that you look at those calls and you see it from this angle and that angle and this angle, and you're like, gosh, I think maybe they can get it right. But they're making a call in front of 5,000 people in a millisecond, and they're just making a decision, making a quick decision. Yeah. So, we've gotten calls, we haven't gotten calls. I never think that, an official either won us a game or lost us a game. It usually never comes down to that. So you move on.
Absolutely. Okay, and then this is kind of more a little technical question is like, was there a player or a team that made you change your game plan every time around that? I know you do game plans for each one, but was that one that like, we can't do anything that we do here, we have to do something different?
Our philosophy for the last 4 years is like, we are who we are. I would say that we spent more time focusing on trying to be as good as we can at what we did versus game planning. We watch film, but I don't think we were watching film with the intent of what we needed to do necessarily to stop that specific team, more so than to like stop an action or stop a way some teams do things that all teams do. This team does this, but we know how to guard it because we work on that. And this is our philosophy on what we do with that and how we go about focusing on defending this or what we do offensively when this happens. I will say this, I think that, the adjustment that we made, or the game planning difference that we made in the second Ludlow game this year versus the first Ludlow game this year, to me was significant, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Just how we went about and thought about the game and the game plan of what we need to do. Coach Daly did a great job in that game this year, and we kind of got lucky to get out of there with a win. And I learned a lot in that game about a lot of things, but it really I think it translated well to when we play them the second time and thinking about how we need to game plan for them. But most of the time, it's kind of about blocking and tackling, making sure that we defend and, do what we do on the defensive side of the ball and rebound. And if we do that and we stay to our 6 core principles, our 6 core basketball principles every single day, which, we kind of tried to do, obviously, good things tended to happen for us.
Now, you remember your first game as a head coach?
I do.
Who was that game against?
It was Stratford on the road in the 2000. I think it was it was the beginning of 2022.
Yeah. You know that's final score line. I mean, I have notes, but you remember that final score line? How much you won that game by?
If my memory serves me correctly, it was either like 66-36 or it was 63-33.
66-30.
66-30.
Yeah, you were very close.
Something
and who was the highest scorer in that game? Do you remember that?
Was it Sam?
No, Sale. Cody Sale.
Cody Sale. I was going to say it was Sam or Cody. Yeah, Cody was great. I remember, what I remember about that game was I remember talking to Bob Buswell on the bench before the game, like, gosh, I can't believe I'm actually here. And I can't believe we're actually coaching this game. I remember what I wore that night. And we got off to like an interesting start in that game. Chris was such an important part of my first year, and kind of set the cultural standard of what was necessary. Him and Cody set the cultural standard of what was necessary. Rothy and Charlie and all those, those seniors, that group of 9 seniors, which was awesome. Ethan. But if I remember about the game is we got off to a slow start. And I remember, we had the electric company that year, which was Caleb Smith, Adam Udell, and Sam Clacko. That was the name that Pick gave to them. And I remember we subbed them in, and Udell got like 2 or 3 steals pressuring the basketball. And I think the lead went from like 8-7 to 19-7 quickly.
Yeah, I looked the score box of that game. That's exactly what happened.
Something like that.
Exactly
and then I was like, okay, we're going to be okay. And it relaxed me. So, Adam relaxed me a lot during the 4 years. But that was I remember him and Sam hit a big 3. I remember Pick said to Sam, his freshman year, he's like, whatever happens when you catch the ball, shoot it. Just shoot it. That and 204 threes later, he had a pretty good career.
He certainly did.
So they came in and did what they did for 4 years.
Yeah, I listen. We can't not talk about the Ward game, right? Because I think that kind of, we weren't doing PrepZone at that time, but I remember watching it. I was at home watching that game, right? And I pulled some stats about that game. I want to see that game was like a 2-point game, right? An overtime game, 7:55. But you remember
57-55.
Yeah. Do you remember how many points you scored that fourth quarter? Do you have any idea? Do you know that?
For some reason, I kind of feel like we started the quarter at either with total 19 or 21 points. I think we're down. I think we only scored 19 points through 3 quarters of that game. Right.
So you had 6 points in that third quarter. Then you scored 28 points in the fourth quarter. I mean, isn't that? I mean, it was an unbelievable. I mean, any way you slice it, to me, that was just an incredible game.
Yeah, that game is an interesting game because, we didn't deserve to win it. To be honest with you, I mean, we ended up winning it, but we got outplayed for most of that game. That War team was good at beating us pretty handily in our gym 3 or 4 weeks before that. Jack Plesser and David Melson and a lot of guys that we still talk to that were so great that day. But it's like those games that spearhead a program. If you lose that game, are we the same program that we ended up being these last 4 years? I don't know. It gave them a ton of confidence. It gave Adam and Caleb a ton of confidence. Sam, the ironic thing about that is Sam was sick that day.
I do remember that. Sam was sick. He was wearing a mask and everything.
Sam was on a mask. He was in a mask that day.
I do remember that, yeah.
And, I just remember, I remember Chris hitting this college level jump hook in overtime and just...
It's like like you
Cody
said,
hit the big 3 before the timeout. I mean, we've talked a lot about all this stuff. This is so much fun to go back and think about these games. But that moment, I watched that game. I watched the last 25 seconds of that game probably 10 or 15 times a year, because the thing that I that I remember the most about that moment was the reaction from the kids. The kids were when I took the job, I wanted the kids to have the greatest time in the world, the fans and the student body to have the greatest time in the world in that gym, or at games. And their reaction, their unconditional, enthusiastic reaction to Aiden Shea missing that last shot when Chris, challenged it, and Adam's steal and layup it kind of gives me chills to think about it now, because it was everything I always imagined. The game was great, but everything I imagined, not so dissimilar from, seeing the turnout that we had, a couple weeks ago at Mohegan Sun. Those kind of moments, the Trumbull game, having the gym packed, having people care about this team, having people have fun at these games, to me, that was just as important to me as whether we won or we lost them.
Yeah, and there is the gym reaction, and then there's everyone is watching. For example, for me, what I remember about that, and like I said, I was home, and then we watched the game, and like I said, it was a struggle early on, but my son, who was senior at that time, older one, he kept on the game. I moved on to something else. When they started coming, he goes, "Dad, let's go." We went to the living room, we turned the game on, and we were cheering, and this was like a real, it was a real game, but like a professional game that you're sitting there watching, and you're jumping up and down, and when it's over, you can't go to sleep. That's when you know the game is great, right? Because when it's over, the first thing I was doing, I was looking for a press conference somewhere. That's the first thing I wanted to do was like hear from you, and and there wasn't one, and that's why one of the things that I was like, man, at this point, like we want reaction, right? We want to hear from you. We want to hear from the play. That's a big part of it because when you're so invested in it, you want to hear from the people.
Yeah, it was. It's funny because when I say that I watched that game back time and time, or watch that last 20 seconds, to me, I watch everyone's individual reaction. Everyone from who was on the floor at that time. I think it was Chris, Adam, Cody, Rothy, and Caleb, right? Each one of their reactions to the moment, to Paul Zajac, Chris's dad, to Jim Farnan when he was there, to Stafford, to VJ, to Coach Divine, to Justin, to Jake. Everybody's individual my reaction. I fell to my knees. Just everyone's reaction, and that's what sports are about. That's what they're about. Like, and then the reactions, and then the losing, because we've been on the other side of it. We were just on the other side of it 3 weeks ago. Yeah. To what the Ward fans were and the Ward players, and how Coach Swaller handled himself with so much class. After that, like I know it was devastating, right? And he was just so unbelievably classy in that defeat, and I know it was heartbreaking for him. That you tell a lot about someone's character by the way they handle a loss. You really do.
100%. Yeah.
And that was something that I remember a lot about that night.
Now, do you know what blind ranking is?
I don't.
So blind ranking is, I'm going to give you 2, 4, 6 games.
Okay.
You don't know what's coming up next.
Okay.
So you got to rank them in order of importance. So I've got 2, 4, 6 games here. Okay. And I'm going to give you the games in no specific order.
I think I've seen this on Instagram.
Yeah. Right? So there's 6 coming up. So okay. I need you to rank about them, okay?
Okay. Yes.
So we'll start with the first FCAC championship against Ridgefield, 2025.
2.
The Trumbull 2026 win at home. 2 undefeated teams.
5.
The first state championship loss to San Bernard.
4.
The Ward game.
1.
The FCAC final over Ridgefield, the 2026 one.
6.
And then the state championship loss, West Haven, will be the
3rd.
Correct. That's.
I mean, I'm not.
Yeah, I know.
If I had that over, I'd probably change that.
That's why blind is hard.
The second FCAC for me was, it was special for Sam, really special for Sam, and for the Clackle family, because I knew what they went through the year before with Sam getting hurt, and him achieving that, being the MVP of that game. People don't realize how great of a tournament he had. He was unbelievable against West Hill, and he was unbelievable against Ludlow. Mason was sick. Like, Sam was great in that entire tournament. That to me was special because he got to experience what I felt like he deserved to experience. That probably would have been maybe higher in the list. That Ward game's hard to not be won.
It's one of those defining moments, right, of everything that, like I said, I think, and we don't define things, but when you look at, the last 4 years, I guess that's the first thing that comes to everybody's mind,
Yeah, but I think there was a lot of really
the
special
1,000-point game was insanely special.
That was a great game. I think the comeback my second year against Wilton at home was when the night I think we spoke about it. That was a really special game because that group was.
They face guarded Sam that night. They took him out of the game, and then we talked about the game, and you said, "Well, I think just people don't see how great Sam was last night." I remember that comment you made.
Yeah, and I think it also showed that this was a team. Nick Sikorsky and Dylan Lohman had 12 threes that night between them. It was kind of Dylan's coming out party.
7 threes that game.
Yeah, 7 threes that game. And being down 15 and in the second quarter to, in my opinion, probably a more talented Wilton team than us that second year, was a really special game. The West Haven first game that we played my second year in that tournament up in Immaculate was really a big game because
I remember that gym was crazy. I remember making the drive. That game was like around Christmas time, wasn't it? It was Christmas time. Yeah, I remember that. Now I think Adam got the MVP. No, I don't know if it was Adam got the MVP for that tournament. I think, but I know that.
Yeah, I think Adam did.
It was a great. I remember those games were great. That gym was like locked in. It was fun.
And because I think what happened is that after our first year and going to Mohegan, we had lost 9 seniors, not so dissimilar to what we just went through. And we were young. We had Mason, who didn't have a lot of varsity experience. He was on varsity, but didn't have a lot of varsity experience. Adam and Sam, that were, Sam ended up being a starter when Gavin got hurt, but had earned that role. And Adam, who kind of split time with Charlie that year. We didn't know what we were going to be. And I remember talking to Sam and Adam before the season. We had our captain's calls, and we just spoke about, like, they had a high level of confidence that we were going to be successful. I think the 3 of us did, because I knew what I was getting back with them. But there was a lot of unknowns, and we ended up going and beating that West Haven team and winning that tournament and starting 5-1. We ended up losing 3 games in a row that year. I'll tell you what was also a really, really special game for me, which might have been 1 or 2 if you would have brought this in, which was the Trumbull final my second year. And that was the day I lost my dad. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was special because, we had lost to Trumbull by 16 at home 3 weeks prior to that game. And, that was a really good team. Ryan and Sean and Fowler and Coach Divine was like, they were really good. And the kids stepped up for me that night. That to me, I'll never forget.
Yeah, that was, I remember that game vividly, right? Everything that went around it and how tough you guys played. And we didn't talk after the game because I personally didn't have the heart to go to you. No. I know you're not like that, but you know what I mean? So it's like, that was an incredible game. And my last remember was like, at the end, I was just kind of over on the bench and seeing the kids, and like they all felt like they let you down. I know that we've spoken about that, how you said they didn't. You view it as how they stepped up for you.
Completely.
They feel like they let you down. No. It's so true. Because what I'm talking about, because they commented to me something like, but it's so great that you bring that up, because you looked at it totally different than they did.
Yeah. Excuse me. The wins are great. The losses are really special. When I think about that game and I think about the West Haven triple overtime game, we lost 2. We went to 6 championship games in the 4 years. We won 2 of them. We lost 2 of them. We lost 4 of them, and we lost 2 of those 4 in overtime. Those are being able to kind of have some resiliency and come back and fight that and be in that moment where you have to go into overtime and you have to be successful. In the first game, half our team fouled out in that game against Trumbull in the overtime. And honestly, I thought that in the West Haven game, Dylan fouling out in overtime was also a big moment, or second overtime was a big moment. So, but going through those losses were as memorable and as special, maybe not necessarily from a happiness perspective, but from a learning and emotional perspective that I can remember.
Only lost 12 games in 4 years.
19.
Was it 19?
Yeah, 19. That's
lost. Right, 19, not 12, 12, 19. 82, 19, correct.
Yeah, 85 and 19. Yeah, we lost 19 games in 4 years.
So it's still, most programs would take that in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
It's not a lot of loss, but but it's
26 and 1 helps that record.
It certainly does. But it's incredible.
Yeah, it was.
It's incredible. I do want to ask a couple. I want to ask one more question, and I want to say something.
Yeah.
But the question is, when the light goes off, right? Which pretty much kind of on your time here.
Yeah.
But what do you hope people say the most about your time here?
I hope that they say that that he cared. that he gave everything he possibly could give, and to the parents of, I'm getting emotional. To the kids that I coached, that I impacted their lives. Sorry. That's what I hope for.
Now,
sorry.
No, I want to. What I want to say is that I've gotten to experience the friend side of David Goldshore over these 4 years. We've had talks off air. You've called. You've been interested. You've been. So I've experienced, I guess, the friend side that most people don't see. They see the screaming and yelling side, the gym side.
Yeah.
And I was privileged to have done that. So I want to thank you for that. I really do want to thank you for that, because you impacted my life. You impacted PrepZone. And if anything, that Undu said it, and I want to give you something. It's very small, but it's just a token of our gratitude for everything you've done for PrepZone and what you've done for us.
You're
personally.
crazy.
So
thank you.
I want to say this is just a very small, small token.
Thank you.
And you're going to be so missed.
I'm not going anywhere.
I know.
I'm not going anywhere. You guys are going to be like, get out of the gym. I'm not. Yeah. That's the one thing I want to say. That I've been in this town for 22 years. I'll continue to stay in this town. I have, Justin's a freshman and he's just beginning his high school experience. I want him to have the greatest high school experience that he can have. The legacy of this team, I really hope, and I'm, going to try to help out in this process any way that they want me to help out, to make sure that the transition is one that is smooth, and that, if Stance lives, that would mean the world to me. But I'm here for the kids that I've left, and the kids that are there. Yeah.
Would you ever consider coming back?
I love coaching. I love it. I feel like at some point that it's something that that I really hope I have the opportunity to do again. As I said, started, sometimes what the situation needs and what your ego wants are sometimes two different things. But gosh, I love coaching kids.
There's nothing like it. I mean, like you just said, impacting lives, and just knowing that it's. I think I was talking to somebody, and I said sometimes it's so hard to explain that the results are not the end all be all. Everything that goes around that, it's so much bigger than what you're doing, and your emotion and your openness today just kind of shows that, and the fact that you brought up losses as like, the big one of the but it just kind of shows where the heart really is.
I mean, but if you think about all these, Steve, you think about, you're a sports guy, you think about these teams, whether it was the Cubs, I think in 2006, I think, or 16, and the Yankees in 96, or, what it will be when the Jets win, a Super Bowl. The losses make the wins better. They just do. You lose a lot of friends at 26-1. I'm telling you. A lot of people don't like you when you go 26-0 or 26-1. Like, you lose friends, right? There's a lot of camaraderie in losses. There are a lot of there's just a lot of, like, misery loves company, I guess. So when you lose, it makes the wins, it makes people, when you win, so special. Like that first championship, winning that first FCAC in 25 was really, really, really special. And having some of those big wins that we had, going to Mohegan in 23 it just, Coach Divine is as good a friend to me as anybody. And the experience I had with him over the 5 years prior to that, I don't think people forget sometimes that I've been here for 9, not 4. And what he meant to me and what he did and what we went through and the chance that he gave me, the opportunity of a lifetime. Special.
And sorry, I just got to ask this one more question.
Yeah, go.
How was it telling the players they weren't to come back?
One more time.
How was it telling the players? Because I know you had the meeting with them first before you made it public.
Yeah.
What was that mean? I mean, I saw some reaction, from I think Inklings put something out, some of the players, how it was tough was for them. Walk us through that moment with you walking in whatever that place was and how you told them. What was that like?
I try to make it quick.
Yeah.
I didn't, this is something that I kind of knew I was going to do for a week or so before I did it. I wanted to make sure that the process of going about doing it was the right way. And I apologize to people who didn't hear it from me directly. I just felt like I was important to make sure that the kids found out from me. It was quick. It was, I'm having breakfast and lunch with a couple of them in the next week or so, just to, understand and keep them in a place where they have a job to do and what they need to do in order to get, to move the program forward. And I'm excited about that. I'm not going anywhere. So it wasn't for me, maybe as it was tough because I wanted, I think maybe some of them had some inkling. I don't know, but it was quick and move on.
Yeah, it's like it's just
There's no easy way. There's kind of no easy way to sit there, right? This is what's going on, and I just walked out and I said I love them.
Yeah, because it's like I almost feel like there's really not much you can say that's going to make any of this better. Right? I mean, it's like and better is probably not the right word. I'm just saying like less painful and less. But one thing I've learned is that emotion is good. It's like you want people to have an emotion reaction. Listen, you want it to be positive, but even sometimes a negative emotion, one thing I've learned, like, with PrepZone, sometimes you get, some quote unquote hate, right? But it's like the hate means that they care so much, they're sitting there watching everything you say, right? And they're following everything you do.
They are. But the other thing about like moving on is that there's almost a beauty in like newness. And, when after my first year, Coach Black joined us, and there was a freshness, is what I'd say, to the gym. Mm-hmm. And then, and then Coach LaPrade and Coach Cass joined us this year. And there's like a freshness to what goes on in the gym. Eventually there's a little bit of a law of diminishing returns in regards to like your messaging and how you go about your messaging. Mm-hmm. So while you have different kids each year, like I think there's going to be a surprisingly a boost of energy from maybe some new leadership in regards to how they communicate, how they are received by the players, how the players respond to them, the expectations, proving to everyone that this can continue in the right way. So I'm really, really excited, to go to games, and I'm excited to see what I think is going to be a really, really smooth, good transition, but a different transition. So yes, there's sadness, but sometimes there are a lot of good things that can happen from it as well. And I'm really confident that it will be the case.
Yeah, and that's the hope, right? But I will say that the man, you will be very missed. I would say that it's like I think you've been, listen, I do this. We cover all the sports. No coach gets their name chanted by the crowd, but you. And I'm just saying, it's like it's the special relationship that you have and you developed. And you touched on that earlier when you said you want them to have the best time. And the point is, like, there's something to be learned there to the fact that you can.
Let me just say something about the name being, just so you get, like, when you have kids at the school, right, and your children in the school, and you've known, and your kids have known your kids, and they are connected, like, that's almost just as much about my 3 children as it is about me, and how they're adored and how they're viewed and how they're respected, and the student body wanting to show their appreciation to my 3 children and my wife about me. That's what that's really about. Don't get me wrong. No. It made me feel incredibly special and much appreciated, and I'll never forget it. But I like, that was also to my children.
I totally agree. Where I think that's so special is because, the same way that sometimes the basketball team would come down chanting PrepZone, how special that was to me in the crowd did. And the point was, you really can't fake those reactions. It's in this point, like, you can't go there and tell the crowd to chant your name. They do it because, like you said, it's a combination of everything that you've built. It's the family, it's the time, it's what what they view in you and everything like that. So it's special because it's the kind of thing you really can't fake it.
And that's fair. And you deserve every second of that. And I think the thing that you and I both share together is just our passion for this. It doesn't probably put food on the table for either one of us, but it's a passion, right? And when you're passionate about something and you went back to emotion, people see it. And I think it, in a world that is a challenging world now for a lot of different reasons, real emotion and real passion and authenticity is well received.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's so much fun. Like I said, it's like, maybe you're right. Maybe the freshness will bring something, but for right now, the sadness is still a lot there. It'll take some time to get adjusted to it, and I'm sure we'll, I think all things work out. Like I said, life is that way. But
they do.
What I really liked about today is that I want to thank you for your openness, for taking the time to sit with us. Also, that you didn't close the door. That's a big thing.
Yeah, I mean,
didn't close the door.
I didn't.
I told you before we started, my goal was to keep you to stay. I didn't do that, but
it's something that I think in the future that could be reevaluated. But I, just leave you by saying, thank you to you as always for the work that you've done. Thank you to Superintendent Scarice and Principal Thomas and Athletic Director Cerullo and Coach Devine and my staff and my parents, but most importantly to my players. They've meant a lot to me.
Coach, thank you so much for the time. You'll be missed, but we'll see you in the gym pretty soon.
Thanks, appreciate it.